Hello team and welcome back to the studio. We are here to talk about our second events of the 2021 Process Programming Summer Throwdown. My name is Ed Haynes and with me today in the studio is Ant Haynes.
Hello.
We once again have a two-part workout today. Workouts 2A and 2B are as follows.
On a 12-minute running clock this time, make sure that, again, the clock's counting up. You'll start with a 7-minute AMRAP. That AMRAP will have a 75 air squat buy-in, followed by an AMRAP in the remaining time, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, etc., etc., of deadlifts and toes to bar or a hanging knee raise if you're in the live category. After a 7-minute AMRAP, you'll have a mandatory 2-minute rest. You'll then move to a 3-minute AMRAP of box-facing burpee box jump overs.
Okay, so once again, we see a two-part workout here. Now, remember, this throwdown, it's only 2 weeks long. We wanted to give enough tests for athletes, not only to test all facets of fitness, but also to make sure that we're actually getting enough disparity in that leaderboard to crown an eventual winner of each of our 4 categories: the live, perform, compete, and elite division. Now remember, if you're competing, make sure you have a look at the slight adjustments in load for your relative division. And if you don't know which division you're in, remember we have prerequisites that we use to help you define where you sit. These are the same prerequisites that we use for our live, perform, compete, and elite programs here at the Process Programming. If you don't know which category you fit in, you can always just reach out to us and we can help point you in the right direction. We're about to go down to the floor where we watch Ant and Izzy take on these two workouts in a head-to-head. I believe Izzy actually called you out as soon as this workout was released, saying that she was actually going to...
She said, I can't wait to beat you. I can't remember the rest of it was, but I just, as you can tell from this fist bump, I was fired up for it because I just thought her call-out was pathetic and I just was looking forward to rubbing her nose into the floor. But anyway, should we... Get it.
Yeah, so let's get down to the floor and watch this heated battle. Okay, so some unsportsmanlike conduct to kick us off there. Okay, so we had the barbell set up, and any reason you have your 1.5 kg plates on the inside of your barbell?
No reason at all, apart from the fact that I was going straight after Tammy and Alex did their one, and there seemed to be a plate on the inside, so actually Alex set up my barbell for me. So that's the reason why they're in there.
Cool. So if you're watching, folks, you're thinking, ooh, that looks like a good strategy. I can't really think of any benefit as to why you would do that. Anyway, that's what it is. So we start with air squats. Now, the air squats really in this workout are, it's just the buy into this workout.
Yeah.
Interesting to hear from you, Ant. Maybe you're not the best example for folks watching at home. Any fatigue that carried over from the squats into the deadlift toaster bar?
No, actually there wasn't. A little bit of heart rate fatigue and more just panic because I actually totally lost count of reps. Definitely have a judge if it's going to help you count 75 reps. I know exactly what happened. I counted up to 20 and in my head I was going to go 25, 25, 25. I don't know why, but I got to 20 and then started again. I was like, oh shit. I've lost count already. So I actually end up doing 4 or 5 reps more. It's actually really good that we got myself and Izzy demonstrating this because as you can see, Izzy actually isn't completing an air squat. She's actually staying bent over. So make sure mastering the movement standard.
Mastering the Kang squat.
In the movement standard, make sure the hips do fully extend at the top. Your arms, like I'm doing, I'm actually using a bit of momentum to try and help myself in the way out of the air squat, and I don't quite have the bounce at the bottom, which I normally do just because my knee's still not quite 100%, but I still have enough of a stretch reflex at the bottom position that I have to kind of bounce out of it at the moment.
Yeah. Now let's talk about setup of your stations. Remember, there are no necessary requirements with regards to distance between your barbell and the pull-up bar. We just set these two at an angle just for the sake of actually filming this video. But really, I'd be thinking about setting your barbell up somewhere close to your pull-up bar where you can transition back and forth.
For sure.
So obviously, we're now into the ascending ladder, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and the reps will continue to be added to this rep scheme in 2s.
Yep.
A couple of things to think about in terms of how you would potentially pace or break this, Ant. Thoughts?
Again, assuming you can link toes to bar, for most people, toes to bar is going to be the limiting movement anyway, even if you can link them. Toes to bar is one of those movements, just like a push-up, a strict handstand push-up. Then once they go, they suddenly become infinitely harder to get them back again. So stay well away from fatigue. I'm pretty sure with my rep schemes, I don't think I break until maybe around 8 or 10. And even for me, I thought, you can see I placed the chalk bucket there behind me. I actually don't touch a chalk bucket at all, even though it's 2 grip intensive movements. So I'm hook gripping on the barbell just to try and save the actual clamping over of fingers on the barbell. And then when I jump into pull-up bar, of course, I have the assistance of my grips to help me hang on to the bar.
So you just talked about the potential for, the limiter for a lot of folks being the toes to bar here. I think we have to think about the movement coupling here. You've got a toes to bar and a deadlift, both hinging movements. One is really asking a lot of the posterior chain with the deadlift.
Yep.
One is asking a lot of the anterior chain with the toes to bar. So the movement pattern's the same, but just kind of taxing opposing muscles. Obviously in a toes to bar, you've also got the use of the lats and the grip as well. So that's definitely going to factor in at some point. So we saw here, Ant, you just put in your first break there. Now, the break wasn't necessarily a long one, but you just dropped from the top, reset and go again. Talk us through why you did that.
Again, just because I didn't want any sort of built-up fatigue going into a movement which I deemed harder, which is a toes to bar. So it's smart. In my head, it's smart to just kind of drop the barbell from the top, let it go down anyway to the floor, so there's 0 eccentric loading, and then basically place my hands back on it. So when I get basically a 2 to 4 second break of 0 loading through my body, because I know I'm going to go unbroken in that set of toes to bar.
So something Izzy just did there, she broke her deadlift, stepped over the bar, turned the other way, and to finish a set. Now, actually, I don't think that was necessarily a good idea. It just added an extra transition or an extra object to have to get over to then do it. And you also notice here is he's breaking in the toes to bar. She's moving away from the bar, then coming back in and hitting it. Now, I can totally understand this. Sometimes we use it as distraction. Sometimes we're using it actually to keep ourselves accountable to a rest period that we've set up, and kind of moving, and walking can kind of we can use that almost to make sure we're being consistent and not just losing rest by going to a chalk bucket. But workout like this, 7 minutes where you've lost over a minute doing air squats, those little transitions start to really add up. Right. And if you're losing valuable seconds by just walking a bit further, Izzy's gone to chalk bucket there. She's now walked around the bar. All those things can really start to add up. 1 to 2 seconds here can add up to 10 seconds of lost time in a workout like this.
I think it's also important to note that Izzy is technically breaking the rules that we agreed on at the beginning, which is always facing the camera for both the toes to bar and the deadlift. So she was actually trying to one-up me somehow here, but I don't think it actually ended up paying off.
Okay, cool. So now we're getting into, we're definitely beyond the halfway point. How are you feeling? What's starting to tax you in this point, Ant?
Again, the whole time I was just thinking, I knew my aerobic system would probably have to work the hardest out of the lot, but I was always aware that my grip would probably blow up first if anything was going to blow up. By the end of the 7 minutes, nothing actually ended up tanking out, which is good. I'm pretty sure I kept most of my rest pretty short when I dropped down from the pull-up bar. It was jump down, take a few steps backwards, and then go for my next set. It was always off the pull-up bar, straight into the deadlift, and then hit my first set, drop and break. I definitely wasn't scared or worried about having to break a set. That was very deliberate. But like I said, for those people who are unsure of rep schemes or how to break, definitely break before you have to break or before you're forced to break.
I think ascending rep schemes are tough because what's happening is you're getting aerobically more tax as you move through the ladder. Your local muscle endurance here of the back, the hamstrings, the grip, and the trunk are getting more and more tax, and the rep schemes are getting bigger. So it's just really important. One of the things we talk about, the toes to bar, being a potential big limiter for folks. When it goes, it goes.
Yeah.
With this weight for the deadlift, there's probably not too many people going to get to a point where they're so fatigued that they can't lift the bar off the floor. They'll at least be able to keep on chipping away at repetitions. So, but again, just understanding that the deadlift fatigue is going to contribute to the toes to bar. So, there's just so many different variables to think about. I know it seems simple, 2 movements, ascending rep scheme, but being smart from the start and not going crazy through your rounds of 2, 4, and 6 is smart. It's going to allow you to actually chip away through those bigger chunks of repetitions.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's start to think about the next thing we're going to have to go into here relative to workouts or events, so 1A and 1B, where we had a bit of a longer rest for some folks and also went from an aerobic piece into a max lift. Now we're going from kind of like a very much an aerobic but also muscle endurance challenge tester, this first piece, and we're about to go into kind of 3-minute all-out piece with only 2 minutes of rest. So I think firstly something to think about is 2 minutes of rest is definitely not complete rest. The aerobic system is definitely going to be at play in both these pieces here. But in terms of movement selection, so the deadlift and the toaster bar, and then you're moving into a burpee box jump over. What are some things you're thinking about there in terms of, is there going to be any fatigue that carries over from the first piece to the second?
Yeah, I was definitely thinking that my midline would start to get fatigued in terms of having to bring the feet up in a burpee. Whether it would be a step up or whether it would be a jump up, it didn't actually matter to me. I thought I would be able to I would feel that a little bit. I definitely thought the legs just in general would be a little bit more fatigued than they actually ended up being. One thing for me is a burpee box jump over, similar to the air squat, I still don't have the ability to land in real deep knee flexion at the moment. So you'll see when I do my burpee box jump overs, I'm having to jump quite high on the box. For those that can land in a bit more of a squat, I think it's really important that you warm that up so that you can receive deep bounce off or step off the box. But yeah, in terms of fatigue, I think the main thing that I felt actually was just, of course, aerobic fatigue, but a bit more of a lower back burn than anything versus having to actually stop me. Yep. I think the burpee box jump over is much like an air squat where you can always do another rep. You're not going to get bottlenecked unless you're completely dead after the first hand.
I think something to think about in that first piece with the ascending rep scheme is actually going to force folks to break. Yeah. And when you have a workout which is forcing you to break, you actually get some forced recovery. So you may not see or have the same kind of damage that we had on workout 1A, where folks are on their back recovering. Both of you guys, you kind of sat still for a couple of minutes and then you were kind of back on your feet ready to attack the next piece. Actually, it's not a couple of minutes, just a minute or so. And I think definitely it's important not to put yourself into that deep pain cave after that first one and have you be cognitively ready to rock and roll in the second piece. I remember the nature of kind of two-part events is we want to score averagely well on both events. It doesn't generally serve us to win part one and come last in part B or part two. So again, just something to think about here.
I think it's also something to think about and consider is that in workouts 1A and 1B, there's also a tie break. So with the tie break, if you move faster in workout 1A, that paid dividends if you tied with someone in the thruster for part B. However, on this one, there's no tie break anymore.
Good point.
So because everyone's still having to work for the 7-minute window anyway. So it's just all up to your own kind of pacing there.
Okay, so there's lots of technical components to a burpee box jump over.
Yeah.
Folks who did the open are going to be well aware of what this movement is about and how to execute it. And hopefully, you've practiced different ways to transition both in and out of the burpee itself, but also the box jump over component.
Yeah.
And I think this is something, when this workout first came out, the dumbbell snatch burpee box jump over workout first came out in 2016, I believe it was. We saw lots and lots of changes in technique from 2016 to this year.
Yeah.
And what you guys can do straight away, of course, other than just watching Ant and Izzy here, is actually watch some of the best athletes attack that dumbbell snatch burpee box jump workout to get some ideas and different strategies you can have in terms of technique. Now, remember, you always have to, remember where you sit relative to the athlete that you are watching. So we have, Ant, who is, a CrossFit Games athlete. We have Izzy, who is, someone who's probably, a quarter-final, semi-final CrossFit Games athlete as well. So, you've got two fairly high standard or high caliber athletes here. So what both of you are opting for is a step up with the burpee and a jump back. So you're jumping back, stepping up, and then you're attacking your jump from at an angle. So what's happening is that you're stepping up, then from that same angle, you're landing on the box at the angle, and essentially that's kind of taken or done half the turn for you already.
Yeah.
Whereas you watch Izzy, she's jumping a little bit more head on with a slight turn, but then is then kind of doing more of a turn off the box.
Yeah, for sure.
Any thoughts?
No, I mean, personally, I like to do that because you're already completing half a job before you're having to do the full job on the other side. And there's nothing to say that's right or wrong or more or less efficient. It's just personally how I like to do it. Like I mentioned before, you can see different styles of me having to catch almost standing completely tall at the top of the box versus Izzy who can catch in the bottom of the squat. I think where I was faster than Izzy is just off the floor. She was spending a lot of time on the floor with her hands still down there, while I'm much faster off the floor each rep. So you can see when we're kind of neck and neck down there, I'm up and over the box already before she is.
Now, was this a workout, obviously already being in a fatigue-based state, and then you got 3-minute burpee box jumps? Did you find that your tempo decreased as you went through these, or did you have another gear to kind of kick up in the last few seconds?
I do kick up a little bit in the last few seconds. Wasn't really aware of the time, if I'm honest with you. I kind of lost track, and that's all my fault. But yeah, I think I lost track a little bit. You can see I start to jump off the box here a little bit. I actually started deliberately with a faster cadence as well to try and get in Izzy's head. just to try and put myself 1 or 2 reps ahead of her immediately and see what that would make her do. But yeah, like you can see, I definitely had another little bit of a gear to go to. Not too much though.
And I think, you know what, we saw that simple transition going from a step up to a jump up and then popping straight off the box versus stepping down. This is exactly why it's really important to practice different techniques when it comes to all our movements in the sport of CrossFit. You want to be able to easily access different variations of movement which have different speeds and different costs on the body, and be able to transition without much thought. You know, for folks who only practice one technique, that's all you're ever going to have, and it's not going to give you gears or other options to access when you need them. Okay, at this point, Ant, how are you feeling?
Yeah, like I said before, it was just more aerobically, breathing heavy. Nothing was too taxed locally. No, never got stopped from pressing off the floor. My legs never stopped me from jumping onto the box again. It's just more of aerobic fatigue, I think, because it ends up essentially being a 11-minute AMRAP because you only got that 2-minute rest in the middle.
Nice. Okay, so for folks who are doing this one, a couple of reminders. Remember, you have to film your workout, so make sure your camera's set up and you can see all angles and see all the movements in the workout. Make sure you watch our movement standards video. Make sure your phone is on airplane mode and you have adequate space and adequate battery. Of course, you can have a judge, like Ant said. You know, keeping track of the repetitions, especially in the first piece, might be a challenge to you. So if you'd like someone to help be there and hold you accountable to those repetitions as well as the movement standards, then go ahead and do that. At this point now, you've completed 4 workouts of the Process Programming Summer Throwdown. Congratulations for getting here. And any last comments before we wrap this up?
No, just looking forward to seeing the people far and wide coming onto this community leaderboard, and people just throwing down again and us getting to do our job and kind of pick people apart and have a look at other people's workouts, and just looking forward to it again. Just seeing people throw down after the Olympics and the CrossFit Games. It's really fired me up to see this sort of stuff again. Yeah,
and something we are going to be bringing to you after each week is an update show where myself and Ant will be reviewing the leaderboard, reviewing some of the workouts, talking to some of our athletes around the world. So make sure you tune into those videos, guys. Of course, partake in any comments on the water cooler on What Up. Share your experiences, have a laugh, start some conversation. It's all about community and having some fun right now. That's it from us in the studio. Good luck to everyone taking part in the part 2 of the Process Throwdown, and we look forward to seeing your names on the leaderboard.
Good luck.